Commander Jake Morrison stood at the window of the space station and watched the mining robots work on the planet below. The robots moved like tiny ants across the red surface, digging up the rare metals that kept the galaxy running. Jake had designed most of those robots himself, just like he had designed the power systems that kept the station alive and the communication arrays that let them talk to ships 1,000 light years away. It was funny how no one ever mentioned that part. During the council meetings, the door behind him opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Lisa Hamilton walked in, carrying a datapad that probably contained more bad news. Her face told him everything he needed to know before she even spoke. "How many this time?" Jake asked without turning around. 43 humans dead, another 112 wounded, Lisa said. She sat down heavily in the chair by his desk. "The Keth border raid was worse than we thought. Our boys took the worst of it, as usual." Jake finally turned away from the window. Lisa looked tired. They all looked tired these days. Running a space station was hard work, but watching their people die for aliens who barely noticed their sacrifice was harder. "What was the total casualty count?" he asked. 68 total dead, 180 wounded. So humans made up 63% of the deaths. Lisa's voice was flat, like she was reading a grocery list instead of talking about dead friends. Same as always. Jake pulled up the population data on his computer. Humans made up exactly 4.2% of the Federation's total population. Yet they took 60% of the casualties in every fight. The math was simple and ugly. "The Federation Council is calling it a great victory," Lisa continued. "They're throwing a party on Nexus Prime tomorrow, celebrating how we saved the Rigellian trade routes. Are we invited? What do you think?" Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. The Federation loved human soldiers when they were dying for alien worlds. They were less enthusiastic about inviting humans to the victory celebrations afterward. His computer chimed with an incoming message. Jake read it twice before he believed what he was seeing. "You're not going to like this," he told Lisa. "Worse than 43 dead friends?" The Federation Council just voted to increase taxes on human colonies by 15%. Something about fair contribution to galactic security. Jake's hands clenched into fists. Fair contribution. We're already paying twice what anyone else pays. Lisa was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked the question that had been hanging in the air between them for months. "Jake, why do we keep doing this?" Before he could answer, the emergency alarm started blaring throughout the station. Jake's computer lit up with incoming signals from every corner of the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire had just attacked the Centauri system with a massive fleet. 3 planets were under bombardment. Millions of people were going to die unless someone stopped them. The Federation's response was as predictable as sunrise. Within an hour, Jake received new orders. All human battle fleets were to proceed immediately to Centauri. The alien fleets would provide support from safer positions. Admiral Karen Mitchell commanded the largest human fleet in the galaxy. Her flagship, the UES Liberty, was already preparing for the jump to Centauri when she called Jake on a secure channel. "They're sending us into a trap," Karen said without preamble. "Intelligence reports show the Zephyrians have been planning this for months. They know our tactics, our ship designs, everything. This isn't a battle. It's a slaughter." "Did you tell the Federation Council?" "I tried. They said human concerns were noted and that we should follow orders." Karen's face was hard as stone. 40,000 of my people are about to jump into hell because some alien politicians think human. Lives are cheaper than everyone else's." Jake watched through the station's long-range sensors as the human fleets gathered. Hundreds of ships, thousands of brave men and women who would probably never come home. All because the Federation needed someone to do the dying and humans. "We're always willing to volunteer," The Battle of Centauri lasted 18 hours. The human fleets fought with skill and courage that would be talked about for generations. They broke the Zephyrian attack, saved 3 worlds, and preserved the most important trade route in the galaxy. The cost was exactly what Admiral Mitchell had predicted: 40,000 human lives and a dozen capital ships. Jake and Lisa watched the casualty reports come in. Names scrolled down their screens. People they had served with, fought beside, shared drinks with in happier times. The Federation had won another great victory, and humans had paid the price for it. The victory celebrations started 3 days. Later, every major world in the Federation threw parties. Alien leaders gave speeches about courage and sacrifice and the triumph of good over evil. They praised the brave souls who had died to keep the galaxy safe. None of them mentioned that. 90% of those brave souls had been human. The final insult came during the May Federation Council's emergency session. Jake watched the vote live on his computer screen. The council was debating whether to censure the human fleet commanders for excessive use of force during the battle. Apparently, destroying the enemy fleet instead of just driving it away was considered UNSPORTING. The vote wasn't even close. 189 council members voted to officially condemn the human military for winning too decisively. 47 voted against the censure. 1 member abstained. Jake turned off his computer and looked out at the planet below. The mining robots were still working, still digging up the materials that kept the galaxy running. Human robots designed by human engineers, operated by human technicians. His personal communicator buzzed. The message was from Earth, from President Robert Hayes himself. It was short and simple. Pack your bags. We're done. Lisa looked up from her own communicator. She had received the same message. Done with what? She asked. All of it, Jake said. He was already thinking about what needed to be shut down, what data needed to be secured, what systems would fail when the humans left. We're done being the Federation's servants. For the first time in months, Lisa smiled. It's about time. Outside the window, the mining robots continued their work, unaware that they would soon be leaving this world forever. In a few months, the aliens would discover just how much they had depended on human hands and human minds to keep their civilization running. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided they had had enough. Dr. Lisa Hamilton walked through the medical bay one last time. She had worked here for 8 years, saving lives from dozens of different species. The alien patients never seemed to notice that their doctor was human, or that all the medical equipment keeping them alive had been built by human companies using human research. That was about to change. Lisa's replacement was a Rigelian named Dr. Voss. He was smart enough, but he had never worked with human medical technology before. Lisa tried to explain how the quantum scanners worked, but she could see the confusion in his large purple eyes. The scanner will show you the problem, Lisa said slowly. But you have to know which button to push for each species. Centaurian hearts beat differently than Deltan hearts. If you use the wrong setting, you could kill your patient. Dr. Voss nodded and made notes, but Lisa doubted he really understood. The human medical systems were more complex than they looked. They had been designed by doctors who understood that. Every species was different, with safeguards built in to prevent exactly the kind of mistakes that inexperienced users would make. Why are you leaving? Dr. Voss asked. The Federation needs skilled doctors. Lisa almost laughed. 3 days ago, the Federation Council had voted to censure human military commanders for winning a battle too decisively. They needed human doctors, human engineers, human soldiers, but they did not want to treat humans as equals. Personal reasons, Lisa said. It was not really a lie. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on thousands of space stations, planets, and starships. Human workers were packing up and leaving their posts with little explanation. To outside observers, it looked like a coincidence. Humans were just happening to quit their jobs at the same time. Commander Jake Morrison supervised the shutdown of the mining operation on Kepler 442b. The robots down on the planet's surface were powered by a quantum fusion reactor that Jake had designed personally. Without regular maintenance from someone who understood the system, the reactor would shut down automatically in about 2 weeks. The new manager is a Deltan, Jake told his assistant, Chief Engineer Bob Tyler. Good people, the Deltans. Very logical. But their technology is about 50 years behind ours. Bob was disconnecting the main computer core, carefully removing the quantum processors that controlled everything from life support to the communication array. Think they'll figure it out? Eventually, Jake said. Maybe in a few months, if they're lucky. Maybe longer. The Deltan manager, a friendly alien named Kex, watched them work with growing concern. Are you sure you cannot stay just a few more weeks to help with the transition? Jake shook his head. Sorry, orders from Earth. It was true, in a way. President Robert Hayes had sent coded messages to every human in Federation space. The message was simple. Come home. Now, on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Helen Carter prepared for the most important speech of her career. She had served the Federation faithfully for 15 years, negotiating trade agreements and peace treaties. She had always believed that humans could earn respect through hard work and dedication. She had been wrong. The Federation Council chamber was full when Helen walked to the speaker's podium. Representatives from 237 species watched her with mild interest. Most of them probably expected another boring speech about trade regulations or mining rights. Honored representatives, Helen began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. I stand before you today to announce that humanity is formally withdrawing from the Galactic Federation. Effective immediately, the chamber erupted. In noise, aliens jumped to their feet, shouting questions and demands. Some seemed angry, others confused. A few looked genuinely worried. Chancellor Vex Korath, the Andalite who led the Federation Council, banged his gavel repeatedly. Order. Order. Ambassador Carter, surely this is some kind of mistake. No mistake, Helen said calmly. For 112 years, humanity has served this Federation faithfully. We have bled for your worlds, built your infrastructure, and solved your problems. In return, we have been treated as expendable servants rather than equal partners. This arrangement is no longer acceptable to us. You cannot simply leave, shouted Councillor Threx of the Zephyrian Empire. You have contracts, obligations. Our contracts were with the Federation, Helen replied. Since we are no longer members of the Federation, those contracts are void. She turned and walked out of the chamber, leaving behind 2 centuries of diplomatic relations and a room full of very worried aliens. The real panic started when the Federation bureaucrats realized what human withdrawal actually meant. On industrial worlds throughout the galaxy, human engineers were shutting down factories and power plants that no one else knew how to operate. The antimatter production facility on Gamma Hydri went offline when plant manager Steve Parker locked down the fusion reactors and took his technical staff with him. But we need that antimatter, pleaded the Rigelian governor of Gamma Hydri. Our ships cannot fly without fuel. Then you should learn to make your own, Steve said as he boarded the last human transport ship. We left all the instruction manuals in your computers. Good luck reading them. The instruction manuals were written in human technical language, full of equations and procedures that assumed the reader had a human education. The aliens would figure it out eventually, but it would take time they did not have. Admiral Karen Mitchell commanded the withdrawal of the human space fleets. It was the largest military movement in galactic history, and somehow it happened without a single battle. Human ships simply disappeared from their patrol routes, leaving massive holes in the Federation's defenses. "Where are the human fleets going?" demanded General Crix of the Centaurian Defense Force. "Home," Admiral Mitchell replied over the communication channel. "We are going home." But what about the border patrols? What about the pirate raids in the Outer Rim? Not our problem anymore. Within days, the first pirate attacks began. Without human patrol ships watching the trade routes, raiders moved in to steal cargo and capture ships. The remaining Federation fleets tried to respond, but they were spread too thin and not nearly as effective as the humans they were trying to replace. Dr. Patricia Reynolds, the Federation's chief economist, watched the financial markets collapse. From her office on Nexus Prime, she had been warning about this for years. The galactic economy was more dependent on human innovation than anyone wanted to admit. Trading systems built on human algorithms started failing when the programmers who maintained them packed up and left. Currency exchange rates stabilized, by human mathematical models began swinging wildly as those models went offline. Banks that had relied on human financial experts found themselves making decisions based on guesswork and hope. "How bad is it?" asked her assistant, a young Deltan named Pex. Patricia looked at the numbers on her screen. Red warning lights flashed across every major economic indicator. Bad, very bad. If this continues, we are looking at complete financial collapse within 6 months. What can we do? Pray that the humans change their minds. But Patricia knew the humans would not change their minds. She had seen the vote to censure their military commanders. She had watched the council meetings where human representatives were ignored or insulted. The humans had finally realized what everyone else had been unwilling to admit. The Federation needed them far more than they needed the Federation. As the last human transport ships jumped to hyperspace, they left behind a galaxy that was just beginning to understand how much it had lost. The Federation that had seemed so strong and stable just weeks before was already starting to crack at the foundations. The humans were gone, and with them went the knowledge, skills, and dedication that had held galactic civilization together for over a century. What remained was about to discover just how fragile their mighty Federation really was. 6 months after the humans left, Chancellor Vex Korath stared at reports that made his stomach hurt. Half the Federation's territory was gone. Not conquered, not destroyed, just gone. 43 star systems had declared independence, rather, and stay in a Federation that could not protect them or keep their economies running. The Federation Council met in emergency session every day now, but the meetings had become shouting matches. The Regellians blamed the Centaurians for driving the humans away with their arrogance. The Centaurians said it was the Zephyrians' fault for starting the war that led to human casualties. Everyone blamed someone else, but no one had solutions. "We need to face facts," said Councillor Brix of the Deltan Trade Union. Her voice was calm, but her words hit the chamber like bombs. Without human technology and expertise, the Federation cannot survive in its current form. "Nonsense," shouted General Crix of Centauri. "We managed just fine before the humans joined us." Dr. Yala Chris, a Rigelian economist, stood up with a data pad full of numbers that told a different story. Before humans joined the Federation, we controlled only 37 star systems. Trade between worlds took months instead of days. Medical technology was primitive. Our military could barely handle pirates, let alone organized enemies. She activated a holographic display that showed the grim reality. Interstellar trade had dropped by 78%. The communication networks that had connected the galaxy were failing one by one as human-built relay stations went offline. Pirates now controlled vast sections of space, that had once been safe trade routes. We have perhaps 18 months before complete governmental collapse, Dr. Chris concluded. That is, if we are lucky. The first delegation to try reaching the humans had left 3 weeks ago. Ambassador Taryn Voller of the Deltan Trade Union had taken a small fleet to the Sol system, hoping to negotiate. His ships had to travel at reduced speed because the navigation computers that humans had built were failing without proper maintenance. When Ambassador Voller finally reached Earth, he found the human home world surrounded by defensive platforms. That made him very nervous. The weapons technology looked far more advanced than anything in Federation databases. How had the humans built such things so quickly? Permission to enter Earth orbit, he transmitted on standard diplomatic frequencies. Permission denied, came the reply from Earth Defense Command. State your business. I am Ambassador Taryn Voller of the Deltan Trade Union, seeking audience. With human leadership regarding mutual cooperation. There was a long pause. Then, your request is noted. Please maintain your current position and await further instructions. Ambassador Voller waited for 3 days. His requests for meetings were politely declined. His offers of trade agreements were acknowledged, but not answered. Finally, he received a message that was both courteous and completely final. The Human Colonial Alliance appreciates the Deltan Trade Union's interest in cooperation. At this time, we are focused on internal development and are not accepting diplomatic missions. We suggest you address your concerns to the Galactic Federation, with whom you remain allied. Ambassador Voller had no choice but to return home with nothing to show for his journey, except a growing suspicion that the humans were doing just fine without the Federation. Meanwhile, individual worlds throughout the galaxy were facing their own disasters. On Altair Prime, the terraforming systems that kept the planet's climate stable were breaking down. The Altarians had operated those systems for decades, but they had never understood how they actually worked. Human engineers had built them. Human technicians had maintained them, and human scientists had designed the complex programs that kept 4 billion people alive on a world that should have been a frozen wasteland. How long do we have? Asked Governor Lex of Altair Prime. Chief Engineer Vox looked at his readings and shook his head. The atmospheric processors are failing faster than we can repair them. Maybe 6 months before the greenhouse effect collapses. After that, the planet will start freezing. Can we evacuate? 4 billion people? With what ships? The transport fleet runs on antimatter we can no longer produce. Similar crises were happening throughout the galaxy. On the industrial world of Rigel 7, factories that had run perfectly for decades were shutting down as their human-designed control systems failed. On the military base at Centauri Station, Centaurian officers discovered that their tactical computers had been running human software that they could not update or repair. The worst crisis developed in the Vega system, where something was going wrong with the star itself. Dr. Zara Voss, the system's chief scientist, watched her instruments with growing terror. The stellar regulators that humans had installed 50 years ago were malfunctioning. Without them, the star would become unstable. What happens if we cannot fix them? Asked the system governor. Dr. Voss pulled up a computer simulation that made everyone in the room go quiet. Solar flare, massive one. It will sterilize every planet in the system. 12 billion people will die. The Federation's best scientists worked frantically to understand technology they had taken for granted. But human engineering was more complex than it looked. Every system had backup systems, and those backup systems had their own backups. Humans had designed everything to be reliable and safe, but also nearly impossible for outsiders to understand or modify. It is like trying to repair a watch when you have never seen a gear, complained Dr. Kess, the Federation's top engineer. As news of the Vega crisis reached human space, debates erupted in the Human Colonial Alliance. Dr. Lisa Hamilton, now serving as medical director for the Proxima Centauri colony, argued for helping 12 billion people, she said at the Emergency Council meeting. We cannot just let them die. Admiral Karen Mitchell disagreed. The moment we help them, they will expect us to solve all their problems. We will be right back where we started, being taken for granted. President Robert Hayes listened to both sides. The humans had left the Federation to escape being treated as servants, but letting billions die would make them something worse than servants. It would make them monsters. The solution came from an unexpected source. Alex Chun, a 24-year-old engineer, had an idea that satisfied everyone. We help them, Alex said, but not as Federation citizens. We go as independent contractors. We charge them a fair price, and we make them sign a contract that recognizes human sovereignty. Alex's team of young engineers volunteered for the mission. They flew to Vega in human ships, carrying human tools and human expertise. The repair work took 2 weeks and required techniques that no other species had ever mastered. When they finished, the star was stable again. 12 billion lives had been saved. But more importantly, the galaxy had received a message that changed everything. Humans did not need the Federation, but they were willing to work with individual species that treated them with respect. The old relationship was over forever, but new relationships were possible. Within days of the Vega rescue, 17 different species sent delegations to human space. Not to the Federation, but directly to the humans themselves. Each delegation carried the same message. We want to be your allies, not your masters. The galaxy was learning a new way to do business, and for the first time in months, there was hope that civilization might survive after all. But it would be a very different civilization than the one the humans had left behind. 2 years after the humans left, the galaxy looked completely different. The old Federation still existed, but it was weak and small. It controlled maybe 30% of the space it once ruled. In its place, dozens of smaller alliances had formed, and most of them had one thing in common. They all wanted to be friends with the humans. President Robert Hayes looked out at the rebuilt United Nations building in New York. Representatives from 43 different alien species were waiting inside, all hoping to sign agreements with the Human Colonial Alliance. It was a far cry from the days when humans begged for scraps of respect from the Federation Council, but the transformation of human society had been remarkable. Dr. Samuel Cooper, no longer bound by Federation regulations that limited human research, had made breakthrough discoveries in medical technology that seemed almost magical to other species. His new nanobotic treatments could heal injuries that had once been fatal. Admiral Karen Mitchell had built a defense force that was small but incredibly powerful. Human ships now used technology that was decades ahead of anything else in the galaxy. The weapon systems, the shields, the engines. Everything had been improved now that human engineers could work without alien bureaucrats telling them what was too dangerous to develop. But the biggest change was in how humans saw themselves. Commander Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison in charge of the Kepler Defense Fleet, no longer questioned whether humans deserved respect. They had built their own civilization, and it was better than what they had left behind, the Deltan trade. Union had been the first major species to break away from the Federation and ally with humans. Ambassador Helen Carter, now serving as Human Foreign Minister, had negotiated an agreement that became the model for all future relationships. Treaty was simple: mutual respect, shared benefits, and complete human independence. We offer partnership, not service, Helen had explained to the Deltan delegation. We will work with you as equals or not at all. The Deltans had agreed immediately. They needed human technology to keep their economy running, and they were smart enough to pay a fair price for it. Within 6 months of signing the alliance, Deltan worlds were prospering again as human engineers repaired their infrastructure and human scientists shared new discoveries. Other species followed quickly. The Regelians gained access to human medical technology in exchange for rare minerals and a promise to treat human citizens fairly. The Centaurians, swallowing their pride, requested human military advisors to help rebuild their defense forces. Even some former Federation Council members began secret negotiations. They had finally learned what humans had been trying to tell them for over a century. Respect was not something you could demand. It was something you had to earn. Chancellor Vex. Korath watched his once mighty Federation crumble. Species were leaving every month to join the growing network of human allies. His threats of economic sanctions and military action rang hollow when backed by a military that could barely keep the lights on, and an economy that was collapsing without human expertise. The final test came when the hegemony of Keth launched, a massive invasion of the Arcturus sector. The hegemony had been watching the Federation's decline and decided the time was right to grab some easy territory. Their fleet was huge, over 1,000 ships carrying enough firepower to destroy entire worlds. The remaining Federation forces tried to respond, but it was hopeless. Without human tactical expertise and human technology, they were no match for the hegemony's war machine. World after world fell to the invaders' in desperation. Chancellor Korath sent a personal message to President Hayes. We request human assistance in stopping the hegemony advance. Terms are negotiable. President Hayes' response was public and broadcast throughout the galaxy. The Human Colonial Alliance will take action to protect the Arcturus sector. However, we act not as Federation auxiliaries, but as an independent power protecting our interests and those of our allies. Admiral Mitchell's task force jumped into the Arcturus system just as the hegemony fleet was preparing to attack the main colony world. The human fleet was outnumbered 3-1, but that did not matter anymore. The Battle of Arcturus lasted only 6 hours. Human ships used tactics and weapons that the hegemony had never seen before. Stealth technology that made human vessels nearly invisible. Energy weapons that could cut through enemy shields like paper. And most importantly, tactical coordination that turned the human fleet into a single deadly organism. When the battle ended, the hegemony fleet was completely destroyed. Not one human ship was lost. The hegemony of Keth immediately requested a ceasefire and began withdrawing from all contested systems. More importantly, 17 more species formally requested alliance with humanity within days of the battle. The Federation Council finally admitted defeat. A formal delegation arrived at Earth 3 months later, carrying an official request for new negotiations. They no longer spoke of human obligations or Federation authority. They came as supplicants, hoping for mercy. The negotiations took place in the rebuilt United Nations building. Dr. Lisa Hamilton, now serving as human ambassador to what was left of the galactic community, led the talks. The discussions went on for weeks as the framework for a new galactic order was hammered out. The old Federation, with its assumption that some species existed to serve others, was formally dissolved. In its place, a new alliance structure was established with humans as the senior partners, not because they were stronger or smarter, but because they had proven they could build something better. For too long, this galaxy operated on the assumption that some species exist to serve others. Dr. Hamilton said in her closing address, "Today, we establish a new principle. All intelligent species are equal, but none are expendable." The galaxy collapsed when humans walked away, not because we were indispensable, but because true cooperation requires mutual respect. The new galactic order was more complex than the old Federation, but it was also more stable. Humans led not through force or fear, but through demonstrated competence and fair dealing. Species that had once taken human sacrifice for granted now competed to be worthy partners in humanity's vision of galactic civilization. Alex Chin, the young engineer who had helped save Vega, was now Captain Sean of the exploration vessel UES Endeavor. Her mission was ambitious: to lead humanity's first deep space exploration beyond the galaxy in 3 years. New worlds awaited in the Andromeda Galaxy, where the lessons learned from the old Federation's collapse could be used to build something even better. As Captain Chun's ship prepared for launch, she thought about how much had changed. The galaxy that had once treated humans as disposable servants now looked to them for leadership. Not because humans demanded it, but because they had earned it through sacrifice, competence, and the courage to walk away when walking away was the only option. The galaxy had collapsed the day humans walked away. But from its ruins, something far greater had been born. A civilization based on respect rather than exploitation, on partnership rather than servitude. It was the kind of galaxy that humans had always dreamed of helping to build, but had never been allowed to create until they stopped asking for permission and started demanding the respect they deserved. The stars were calling again, and this time humanity would answer as equals.